Body Reviews Audio Media Part 112, Show Us Who You Are. This is a book about a 13-year-old autistic girl who makes an ADHD best friend whose dad owns a company called Pomegranate, and they basically make interactable holograms of people so you can interact with a famous person or a dead loved one, which feels very pseudoscience-y and eugenics-y, kind of a spooky read. I loved how it showed how easily autistic folks can get taken advantage of by the first people who show them some semblance of care or of seeing their worth, but also how that worth that people see in them might not involve the best of intentions. I loved the nod to difficult to work with equaling difficult to control, and I also love seeing the way all of a sudden a switch flipped in her brain. She suddenly understood everything in a completely different light and completely changed her opinions on all of it and ran into action. That switch flipping adrenaline is real, and I have not seen it described in literature before. From a scientific perspective, the idea of we've only studied neurotypical brains and need to study an autistic brain didn't quite make sense to me, given that our categorization system's inherently flawed and they most definitely had already interacted with neurodivergent brains without knowing it, but they are supposed to be ableist and confused, so I'm gonna let it pass. The other thing that I did not love was there's one line where she says, "I'm not unwell, I don't have an illness, I would never give up being autistic." I understand the intention is that autism is normal and it doesn't need to be cured like an illness something somebody is suffering from, but as a chronically ill person who doesn't want to cure for my chronic illness, just the ability to accommodate it and sees it as a fundamental part of who I am and not something to be denigrated or ashamed of, that line sat a little weird with me, if only because I'm used to seeing neurodivergent activism try to deliberately separate itself from physical disability activism. Based on the rest of the book, I can tell that was not the intention, but there was always like the, what if this idea were taken out of context thing to think about. But that being said, the fact that I'm being this nitpicky about the book means it was genuinely incredible. I really enjoyed it. It's very affirming and empowering, and I recommend you give it